Here's a competition that I'm sure most West Ham fans, if not all, will want to join. For your chance to win this framed Mohamed Kudus signed shirt, plus 15 instant wins, which include signed memorabilia from Edson Alvarez, as well as 2 hospitality tickets to watch West Ham United taking on Ipswich Town on the 5th of October at the London Stadium. Go to footballprizes.co.uk for all the details. And good luck.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on a Wednesday morning. I hope you're all doing well. Before I go into the main theme of this particular video, we've got to congratulate Lewis Orford. I talked last week about Orford. I said he's been given a 5-year contract, and I actually thought that he signed it last week, but it seems not. It seems that he only signed the new deal on Monday. So well done to him, Monday or Tuesday, I think. Sorry. So well done to him, and congratulations. Looking forward to see how this young player develops. It's quite possible now that Orford may go out on loan, just like quite a few of the under 21 players, academy players. But I guess we'll see. He's been playing for the under 21s team so far, a couple of games that they played already. But let's see what happens. Now, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. Costs you nothing to subscribe. And as I keep saying all the time, subscription is free. Doesn't cost you anything to become a subscriber. And also, please, if you like the content, please also hit that like button, because the algorithms in YouTube go crazy when you hit that when you hit the like button. Anyway, the main theme, of course, is about Carlos Soler, but also about how it could impact on the midfield at West Ham. Now, it was only last Friday night, on the eve of our Premier League game of the season, our first Premier League game of the season, that I gave you an update that the club's senior source suggested that we would definitely had an interest in midfielder Carlos Soler. But his comments were, we'd like to get Soler, we'd like to sign him, but we can't afford the signing on fee or the wages. We have seriously overspent. And on that Friday night show, I offered my thoughts as to why Julian Lopetegui and Tim Steidten were targeting yet another central midfielder to add to the ranks of the midfield players that we already have at the club. And then it was evident in our game against Aston Villa on Saturday that we needed something. We needed something different in midfield to try and combat Aston Villa's midfield, and to also create that little bit of magic that our players were lacking in that first game of the season. In other words, the game kind of demonstrated how maybe a player like Carlos Soler could have added real value to our central midfield. So now we hear that the talks are at an advanced stage in bringing the player to East London with a loan, on a loan with an obligation to buy deal. Now let's remind ourselves of what this player can offer. Please forgive me if you've heard all this before, but he developed through the Valencia youth ranks. He started off as a striker, moving to attacking midfield, and is now a capable, all-rounded midfielder. He made his senior debut for Valencia at the age of 19, and in 276 appearances, he scored 36 goals with 31 assists. He amassed a wealth of experience in one of the top leagues in Europe, La Liga, as well as in the Champions League and Europa League whilst playing for Valencia. He's a Spanish Cup winner, and he was part of the Spanish under-21 team who won the Euro under-21 championship in 2019. And for the last 2 seasons at his time at Valencia, he was the club's top goal scorer. And up until the end of 2022, he was being regularly selected for the Spanish senior squad. He's made 14 appearances with 4 goals so far. However, since his move to PSG, things have kind of changed somewhat. He moved there in September of 2022, and he's continued to win trophies. Of course, PSG do 2 league titles, the French Cup, French Super Cup, as well again as being involved in Champions League football. However, in his 2 seasons at PSG, he's only made just 63 appearances, of which only 30 of those have been in the starting lineup in all competitions. And probably because part of the fact that he hasn't been playing regularly could have resulted in the fact that he's not been selected for the Spanish senior squad since then. So, what can he bring to West Ham? Well, he's a versatile player, a versatile midfielder, as mentioned earlier. He can operate in a range of midfield roles, attacking midfield, a little bit deeper if needed, but more the sort of box to box midfielder that could really complement West Ham. He's got a great passing, a great range of passing ability, fantastic ball control, which helps him keep possession even when under pressure. A great work rate. He's got an engine in the middle of the park. Very good at set pieces as well. Very good free kick specialist, and he contributes more than his fair share to defensive duties when required. And technically, he is excellent. He's a player that thrives using the ball proficiently, and he kind of is Julian Lopetegui. You would think he's Julian Lopetegui's ideal kind of central midfielder. Now, don't we have any of that at West Ham right now? Well, I guess we do, but we've got it in several players. Certainly in someone like Tomas Soucek, you would argue, he's a good workhorse. He does put in a shift. In James Ward-Prowse, we've got a player who's proficient at set pieces. In Lucas Paqueta, we've got a player who offers a great amount of flair. Now, I guess Soler should be encompassing, from what we are reading and what we're hearing about him, I guess he should be encompassing all of that in the one player. Now, what it does is, by bringing Soler, it will add value to the team, but his inclusion will mean that we could have anything up to 8 players who will be competing for central midfield slots. Now, to be honest, I've thrown Andy Irving and Mohamed Kudus into the mix. When it comes to Irving, I'm not sure if the player will get that much of a look in, and it won't surprise me if we do see him leave before the summer transfer window closes. But at this moment in time, he's in contention for one of those central midfield slots. With regards to Kudus, we know that he can play as a kind of a number 10, like an attacking midfielder just behind the striker. And I feel having him out on the left feels like it's a little bit wasteful. And that's why I've put him into that middle 8. Now, even if we take Irvin and Kudus out, you've still got 6 players there that will be competing for 2 or possibly 3 places in central midfield, dependent on what formation Julian Lopetegui decides to play in any game. And also, to be honest, by bringing Soler into the fold as well, it gives Lopetegui what he wants. Now, if you recall, Lopetegui talked about having 2 players for every position on the pitch, and he will get that. So you can see across, all right, we've got 3 goalies. At the moment, we've got 3 strikers, but for every other position, right back, left back, central defense, etc., we've got, with Soler coming in, we've got options. It gives him the 2 players per positions that he wants. So there's a logic to bringing Soler in. But then you've got to start thinking, have we got too many players in the team? Well, look, it will be interesting to see with Soler coming in, who is going to be starting games, because there's going to be hefty competition between him, between Paqueta, between Soucek, between James Ward-Prowse, etc., to be in the starting lineup. Look, we will sell players. I think that's clearly the aim, especially after the senior source said that we need to get players out in order to afford Soler coming in. We could, and I think we probably will, sell Andy Irving. We hear that there are suggestions that there's interest from a number of clubs. Apparently, Atalanta and Espanyol have been linked to him. But what will we get for him? What, 5 million, maybe 6, 7, 8 million? That's maybe 10, which I really doubt. But let's say we get 5, 6 million for him. But also, his wages are not that high. He's rumoured to be earning something like 15 to 20,000 pounds a week, give or take. All right, fair enough. The 5 or 6 million in the transfer window and the 15, 20,000 pounds in weekly earnings certainly can go towards bringing Soler in. But there's clearly a gap, because for Soler, we're going to have to pay something like 17 million pounds, and his salary is nearer £100,000 a week than it is £20,000 a week. But it's players who are at the other end of the spectrum in terms of earnings, etc., that maybe the focus may be moving towards. Now, we've got some big money earners on long contracts, such as the 29-year-old Tomas Soucek, who is on around £90,000 a week with 3 years left on his contract, and another 29-year-old James Ward-Prowse, who's on about £115,000 a week, also with about 3 years left on his contract as well. And then, of course, we've got 26-year-old Lucas Paqueta on around £150,000 a week, who also has 3 years remaining on his contract. Now, I could have included talking about Alvarez and Rodriguez in the equation as well. But given that Rodriguez has only just arrived at the club, I don't think we're going to be looking to be moving him on anytime soon. And it's going to take a crazy valuation for West Ham United to even consider allowing Alvarez to leave, who, by the way, is still injured and is unlikely to return to action until September, around about the international, or after the international break, despite what Fabrizio Romano has tweeted out. So, to be honest, Alvarez and Rodriguez are also quite different players to Carlos Soler and the other midfielders that I've mentioned. They are the holding midfielders, the deep defensive midfielders. You know, they're specialised in doing those roles. So it's highly unlikely that Soler is going to come in to replace either one of them in the squad. So the focus and the attention moves back to the likes of Ward-Prowse, Tomas Soucek, Paqueta, who I'm going to, we know we can't sell him at the moment. And of course, another player, Maxwell Cornet. Now, there are rumours about, Soucek having interest from clubs in Turkey, etc. And apparently, James Ward-Prowse's old club, Southampton, are expressing an interest in potentially bringing him back to the club in Hampshire. However, the problem with Southampton is they're highly unlikely to be able to afford the £115,000 a week salary that we're now paying the player. But again, by selling either of those players, it kind of defeats the objective of what Lopetegui wants, to have 2 players for every position in the squad. So I've got no doubt that we could probably get 20 million pounds for Ward-Prowse. We can get 20 million pounds for Soucek. In Ward-Prowse's case, if we only got 20 million for him, we've lost 10 million in a year because we bought him for around about 30 mil last summer. But and also we could also save good money on wages by selling one of those 2 players. But like I say again, it defeats the objective that Lopetegui wants 2 players for every position. So we kind of also got to think about what happens with Paqueta, because Paqueta, we know the situation with him. Whilst the betting charges are looming over his head, there's very little chance that we're going to be able to sell him. Well, we know we can't until that's resolved. But at the same time, we don't know how long we're going to have him available for in a playing capacity. Now, we've heard the noises from his former club, Flamengo, that they were making earlier in the transfer window, that they wanted him on loan to look after him in Brazil. But we know there's no way we were going to allow Paqueta to go on a loan for the season. But we also know that Flamengo or any other club are not going to risk buying the player for what we value in that if he's still got these charges looming and with the possible risk of him getting a ban. Now, we could have him and for the whole season. We may only have him until January. We don't know. Lopetegui knows the value of Paqueta, and he knows that should we lose him at any stage in the season, he's going to have a player that is good enough to step up, and Soler is probably that level, that caliber of player to replace Paqueta. But at the same time, Lopetegui doesn't play one style of football. He plays different variations. He plays different formations. He might go with the long ball. He might go for the passing. He might go for the counter attack. And he knows by having the different players in the squad, like the Ward-Prowse, like Soucek, like Paqueta, like Soler, etc., he will be able to mix it up accordingly. And one other factor that we've got to remind ourselves on is the value that Soucek, Ward-Prowse, and Paqueta bring to the club. Last season, they were involved in 47 of our 60 goals scored in all competitions. Ward-Prowse, 7 goals with 17 assists in 52 appearances. Soucek, yes, the much maligned Tomas Soucek, 10 goals with 3 assists in 52 appearances. And Paqueta, 8 goals with 7 assists in 43 appearances. So logic would suggest that Lopetegui is keeping Soucek, Ward-Prowse, Paqueta, and, as I've said, adding Soler into the equation. These players give the coach different playing options, and Soler will just add to those options. So naturally, we've got to be looking at other players that the club need to try and move on. And naturally, West Ham would prefer to move on Maxwell Cornet. It's not for the want of trying, but he too has got 3 years left on his contract, and his earnings are circa 65 to 70,000 pounds a week. However, as I've said, this is the easier said than done bit because of his injury record, which seems to be putting clubs off from making a bid. But let's say, for argument's sake, we ended up selling Cornet and Irving. We could recoup up to around 10, 11, 12 million pounds in total for those two players. 12 million, 10, 12 million, which be a much bigger amount of money to go towards buying Soler from PSG. Look, it's a loan to buy, but at least it will contribute towards that. But it's also the wages. If we save around, give or take, 80 odd thousand pounds a week in wages for the combined player wages that Cornet and Irving are getting, then you can start seeing the logic in trying to move those players on and bringing in a player like Soler. Thank you all for watching. Really much appreciated. Like I said, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe and hit the like button, and I'll see you all again very soon.